Ghislaine Maxwell is still in her prison. Reporters continue to find new stories in the Epstein files that have been released. And there are a lot more coming, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot more dots that haven't been connected. But here's a story from the Telegraph that is, if true, explosive. This is number, well, you'll put it up. It's 116. Exclusive. Epstein hid secret files in storage units across the USA. Pedophile paid private detectives to remove equipment from his home in an apparent attempt to thwart investigators. Telegraph can reveal. Pretty detailed reporting. They know the locations of a lot of these storage facilities, some in Florida, some in New York. And the timing of some of the emails lead you to believe that there were, it leads to the impression that Epstein did in fact order things moved to these storage facilities away from the home on the eve of investigators coming to search his properties. And it says the storage facilities have never been investigated or subpoenaed or looked at by investigators, by the FBI or state and local officials. I will tell you, it does not take Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys to notice there's very little in the documents that have been released about Epstein's finances. There's very little about the sources of his money, his banking relationships, who he gave money to, who gave money to him. That seems kind of nuts, since a lot of possible crimes would be traceable by following the money. And there's suggestions that the materials that have been spirited away, allegedly, relate to finances. Again, the Clintons' testimony this week will get a lot of attention. But Haima, how much does this Telegraph story, how much of it would be, how big a game changer would it be if true? Because again, it would go to the incomplete release for one thing.
Yeah. Look, I'm not sure how much of a game changer. I think this is just going to add to the collective outrage and skepticism on what's really going on. But look, Hogan and I have talked about this for the last few weeks. I, this is one of those things that has grown and gotten legs of its own, where no one knows really what to believe. No one knows what to really look for. I think what has to happen over the next few months, few weeks, is they've got to have some sort of resolution around bringing justice to the survivors. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure if that, it's like, unseating a prince and taking away his royal trappings. But something has to happen. Otherwise, people are going to be more speculative than they need to be. And this is one of those things where I think if I were a Republican in running for Congress, I'm just sick of talking about it. And I want the president and the FBI to help us come to some sort of resolution here. And so I don't know if this is going to be the thing that snowballs it to a real crescendo. But I do think you're right. If you follow the money, and I think the Clintons are going to talk about this when the Clintons are going to say, look, we never went to the island. We never, Bill Clinton never had any sexual relationships with any young girls on this island. But we did use the plane, and we did take money from him, and we did use, some of his funding to promote things in the Clinton Global Initiative. I think they will say those sort of things. And I think to your point, Mark, then people will start pulling back the layers and saying, well, who else is taking money from him, has taken money from him? Who else was on that plane? Who else used that plane? Why did you use it? Et cetera, et cetera. So I do think there are a lot of questions around the money part that people want to know. But more importantly, people want some sort of resolution.
Hogan, Geraldo and I are going to one of these storage facilities later today. You want to come with us?
What a great pull, by the way, Mark. That was nice.
Yeah.
That Geraldo thing was epic. Was it Hoffa's grave? Is that what that was?
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Listen, I think Haim is right. So much of this, and something I've said on the show before, there's a lot of information we don't know about Jeffrey Epstein, and it centers around how he made his money. Where did that come from? That network, I would imagine, would give us more insight into this. And second thing Haim said, which is always the case, when you don't give people information, they're left to speculate.
Yeah.
If you're sprinkling things out, we're still having conversations about JFK's assassination and Mulcahy's assassination. The problem for me, though, is this. If we build up speculation and everyone believes X, and then all of the documentation comes out and it reveals it's not X, it's actually Y, the people who believe X say, no, then there's still something wrong. They're still not doctoring it because they want their conclusion to be supported by the facts. Mm-hmm. As of right now, a lot of people's conclusions aren't supported by the facts in the Jeffrey Epstein stuff that Republicans have released, that a Republican administration has made sure we now have access to. But there are still questions out there. And I will say the most overused word in the entire Trump administration by the mainstream media was the word bombshell. Every day was a bombshell on
Yeah.
Russia. Every day. This, though, with the revelation there are files hidden across this country, in and of itself is quite interesting. I wouldn't say it's a bombshell, but I'd say it's quite interesting. Of course, he hid
Yeah.
files. When you get them, what's in them, though, that could be of the bombshell variety, Mark.
All right. Exit question on this. Sometimes there's stories. By the way, it's Capone's vault, not Hoffa's grave. Thank you.
Oh, that's it. That's
I
it.
don't read the chat, but I glance at. Exit question on this. Sometimes there's stories in the British press that are seemingly bombshells, and they disappear. We never hear from them again. And sometimes they become huge stories that American press covers. Will this question of his storage facilities be covered by the American press in a meaningful way? Yes or no, Haima?
Yes.
Hogan?
Ish.
I say no, which would be ridiculous.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.